Sana as always, and today's conversation is one I have been really looking forward to. Well, we are talking about strength, mindset, coaching, the power of conscious love with a guest who brings over, hear me out, 30 years of deep transformational work into the space. Joining me is Christian De La Huerta, and he's an award-winning author, transformational coach, TEDx speaker, and someone whose work is reshaping how we think about love, power, and authentic connection in today's digital age. And we're going to unpack what it really means to break free from the inner barriers that hold us back, not just in love, but in how we show up in every area of life. So, with that, Christian, welcome to the show, and I'm so glad you're here with us.
Thanks so much for having me, son. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, um, Christian, before we talk about your book and how we can break free from our internal barriers, if we can share maybe a glimpse of your journey. I mean, what exactly made you to write this book and share your insights and experiences with all of us?
Well, I've been doing this journey of personal transformation for a long time, over 30 years, as you said, doing it consciously. But like many of us, I started out on this journey out of personal need because my life wasn't working. My relationships started to feel like, it's the same boring movie, only with a different co-lead, a different actor. Same kind of stuff coming up, same kind of problems, same kind of arguments. And at some point, I thought to myself, well, there's clearly only one common denominator in all of these relationships. What's going on here? Why am I attracting this kind of relationship, this kind of person into my life? And as you mentioned, my other book is about personal empowerment. It's called Awakening the Soul of Power. And again, I was a very unlikely person to be writing about the heroic journey of conscious relationships and personal empowerment because my adolescence was one long depression, even with suicidal fantasies. Um, and so I know self-doubt. I know self-hatred. And this is why I write these books. I know how to get out of it. I know how other people can boost themselves and empower themselves and actually have relationships that have a chance of working. So that's why I write these books.
Absolutely makes sense. And first of all, thank you, Christian, for sharing a bit from your journey. And also, I would like to ask, so you mentioned that you have been embarked upon this journey of personal transformation of more than 30 years, but it's a conscious personal transformation. What exactly is the difference here? How different it looks like, and also what how different is a conscious relationship than just a normal relationship?
Well, the conscious personal journey, I think all of us, regardless of how conscious we're aware of it, we're on this journey of life to grow and to become more than we have been. I think we all do that. At least most of us, not everybody, but most of us do. To me, what to do it consciously means that we're taking steps toward that. Like whether we're going to see a coach or a therapist, or whether we're going to workshops, or whether we're feeding our mind with fresh thoughts by reading books and watching YouTube videos. That's the conscious part of it. And then in terms of applying that, what it means to do a relationship consciously, um, here's the basic difference, and these are paraphrased from spiritual teacher Ram Dass, who is no longer with us.
Okay.
He talks about how we most of us do relationships unconsciously, meaning that we approach relationships hoping
Mhm.
that that person's gonna make us happy,
Mm.
and there isn't anybody out there who's gonna make us happy, and how unfair to put that responsibility on someone else. "You are gonna make me happy." Yikes. That's a that's a big calling.
Yeah.
And so those are doomed to fail. There's nobody's gonna make us happy, and it's not their job to. So if we're gonna do them consciously, meaning that we're taking full on responsibility for making ourselves happy, to have the kind of lives and relationships that work for us.
Mhm.
He talks about how there's 3 levels. So level 1, where somebody else who doesn't wanna play at this level, who's not interested in personal growth, but there's enough about the relationship that works, right? We co-live well together, you cohabitate well together, maybe you co-parent well together, maybe sex is good, you enjoy each other's company, you make each other laugh, you travel well together. There's enough of it that works that we can say, "Okay, well, I'm this works for me, and then I'm gonna reclaim all the time, all the effort, all the resources that
Yeah.
we would otherwise spend looking for the one, in quotes, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna focus that on my own personal growth and transformation." We'll
That's
skip number 2 and come back number 2. Level 3, both beings are already fully realized, fully aware of our God essence, our God nature, and so then the relationship becomes a sacred dance of mirroring that for each other. I don't think we need to worry about that one yet. So let's go back to number 2, right?
Mhm.
That's the one that's with the juicy kind of relationship as a laboratory for growth. And what that means is that rather than do what most of us do, which is like, take things personally, react when somebody says something that's hurtful to us. Rather than
Mhm.
do stuff like that, we feel that ouch when we feel something that we interpret as painful. And rather than hurting them back, or projecting our stuff onto them, we take a breath and we say, okay, wait a minute, let me look at this. How could I, let me see if I can possibly learn from this and grow from this so that I can grow. And rather than project our stuff, and when we can spend a whole lot of time talking about projection too, that's really important in terms of doing relationships consciously. Basically projection means that it's just like we go to a movie screen and we're seeing that screen in front of us. The origin, the source of it is actually behind us. The same thing with projection in relationships. The more that whatever they do that gets our goat, that gets us upset, gets us angry, the clearer the sign that we're doing that in some other way ourselves, in some way ourselves. So it's a pretty safe bet if we want to do relationships consciously
Mhm.
that if it's there, it's here too. And it can be subtle, right? It can be subtle. Like for example, I was dating somebody once where
Mhm.
basically disappeared. Like we no did no phone calls,
Like
no
ghosting.
texts, no messages.
Like
Missed a
ghosting.
couple of yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I was focused over there. It's like, I wonder what's going on. I wonder what's going on with them. Are they, I called, called them at work. Are they still working there? But I didn't get it. So I was flying to New York to meet with a literary agent that I was working with back then.
Mhm.
And usually she was great about communications. She'd get back to me within 24 hours. And then a week goes by and I haven't heard from her. Now, two different people, different walks of life, kind of doing the same thing. So, what are they doing? They're not showing up. They're not keeping their agreements. They're not keeping their word. They're not doing what they said that I would do, right? We can see that clearly in that projection screen. We can show that mirror in that face. It's like, you never do this. You always do that, right? But turning that mirror around and asking ourselves, how do I do that? That's really hard. That's nothing less than heroic. So, turn that mirror around. How am I doing that? Where am I not showing up? Where am I not keeping my agreements? And it took me a few days because I was doing like an inventory of relationships. I said, no, I'm showing up. No, I'm doing what I said I would do, keeping my word until it hit me. It was in relationship to my writing. Like, how many times had I said to myself, like, no, but this is just me and me. Nobody else was in on this. I'm going to finish that chapter by such and such a date. And the
Mhm.
deadline would come and go. I didn't do it. I didn't finish. I was doing other important stuff, but I wasn't keeping my agreements with myself in relationship to my writing. I wasn't showing up for my writings, right? So same thing, different circumstances, different details. And so here's how this stuff is so amazing how it works. Within an hour of me having that insight, look, oh my God, I'm doing the same thing in relationship to my writing. They both showed up. They both responded. Like, no longer did I need to create drama in my life so that I would get this lesson, this insight, show up for your writing or just choose that you're not going to do it, right? I don't have to write this book. I don't have to write, period. But if I'm gonna say I'm gonna do something, then I either have to keep that word or renegotiate the deadline or just unchoose whatever it is that I said I was gonna do.
Hmm. So, does this mean that um, we shouldn't be fixated on just showing up for others or kind of, getting that attention or trying to get that attention from others? Instead, first we need to show up for ourselves, identify what we actually love, and not fixate on some other person to, give that kind of attention or have that, kind of um, intensive communication to
Yes.
for us to feel good that okay, somebody's giving me that importance. I'm feeling good now. I'm feeling validated right now.
That's right. That's brilliant, right? It's about not looking for the one in quotes. It's about becoming the one. And you're totally right. We get into relationships seeking, and we do most of this unconsciously, right? We're seeking validation. If I could only be with that one, then that means that there can't be something, I can't be all bad, or there's got to be something that I'm doing right if I can be with that. And we also get into relationship because to avoid being alone, like we are afraid of spending time alone and facing ourselves. And we're talking about what it means to live a heroic life, and being a hero is not about slaying dragons. It's about having the courage to go within and facing ourselves, so that we can grow and evolve. Because it's in those blind spots, on those areas we're running away from, that's where the opportunities, the juicy opportunities for growth are. And to go back to what you were just saying, like, what we're going for is getting to a place that we don't need anybody's validation. We know who we are,
Yeah.
and we don't need anybody to validate our worth. It's like our worth is inherent, and we know that, and then we can approach being in relationship for fun, for companionship, for to add value to life or enjoyment to life, but not because we need anybody to complete us, because we don't.
Mhm. I absolutely agree with that. And this ties with beautifully into mindfulness, because we say that mindfulness is about being present and being aware, self-aware. I think before we become aware of the external circumstances or situations or events or people, it's important to be aware about ourselves, what we want, what is our worth. And we need not always prove our worth to someone else just for them to like us or, feeling that feel of love towards us. So,
Absolutely, absolutely, and you're right. Mindfulness, self-awareness is the first step, right? We can't do anything about what we can't see, what we're not aware of. So, you're absolutely right. Becoming mindful, becoming aware of why we do the things we do, who we are, what makes us tick, what we like, what we don't like, it's primary. It's first step, because otherwise we're gonna attract people who are gonna meet us at that level where we don't even know what we want.
exactly. Hmm. True. That is true. And then, then uh, if we get into that situation where we feel validated by the other person, then when that person is not going to give us attention, or as you mentioned in that particular example, they're going to stop all the communication suddenly and only reach out to us when they need. I think that
Right.
again will get us into that rigmarole of self judgment, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
hatred towards ourselves, that okay, maybe something's wrong with me, that people are not like me or that person doesn't like me.
Absolutely, and it sets up that imbalance of power, right? If we're approaching it because we need somebody to validate us, right from the get-go, right from the beginning, we're approaching it as less than. And so a relationship is really only gonna work if there's balance in terms of the power dynamics. Otherwise, resentment builds up, and it's not gonna have a good outcome.
Mm. And Christian, where do we draw the line between becoming self conscious and becoming too much individualistic? That
Mm.
in that process of, in that journey of becoming conscious, we kind of, maybe ignore the good people who really want us to be the best version of ourselves. You kind of ignore them.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm not sure we should draw the line because I'm fiercely independent myself.
Mm.
Um, I'm one of 9 kids, second oldest, so our parents and all 9 within 12 years, so my sister and I, the oldest 2, we had to become really independent, and in some ways take care of ourselves and help take care of the younger ones. Um, and so but at the same time, human beings are social animals, and so we long for connection. Um, we long for community even. But it's I think that the difference is approaching it not from a place of need, right? Not because we need anyone to complete us, but because for fun, for enjoyment, for added value, for growth, right? It's hard to grow in a vacuum by yourself. Um, reminds me of that old story about the enlightened master who spent 30 years in the cave, and
Mm-hmm.
finally she came out, and word soon got around, "Oh my gosh, she's coming out." And so the crowd started surrounding her. "Master, master, what have you learned?" And like he clears the throat. She hadn't spoken to anybody for decades, and says, "My children, I have conquered anger." It's like, oh, they look at each other. Wow, she conquered anger. Amazing. What else? What else have you learned? And she's like befuddled. Like it took her 30 years to conquer anger. And she says it again. I've conquered anger. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What else have you learned? I've conquered anger. Like, so she explodes in frustration and then, walks back to the cave. So it's easy to do these things in the abstract, in a vacuum. Um, sometimes I think that the Dalai Lama, with all due respect, has it easy being celibate. It's in the push and pull of relationship where we get to see our areas that are in need of healing. Um, and and I'm just kind of kidding about the Dalai Lama. I think that's a very valid path. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
judging it. Um, but I'm just highlighting that doing relationships consciously is an equally valid path towards healing and evolution and even enlightenment, even though that's not a word that I use frequently because it's confusing and it means so many different things to different people.
Yeah,
Let's say freedom instead of that.
exactly. No, I
Mhm.
agree with the viewpoint. I mean, it can be different for for everyone. It's not going to be same. But
Yeah.
to understand even that, we need to be conscious. We need to be aware about ourselves.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
Kristen, in your book, Conscious Love, you invite people to reimagine love as a path for spiritual growth. How exactly we can reimagine, because it kind of challenges the way most of us have been taught to view love.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be said about that. But I think the way that love and relationships speeds up our process of evolution is in that way, is in that level 2 relationship we were just talking about, right? It's easy to react, it's easy to splatter somebody else against the wall, it's easy to point out their flaws and their shortcomings, anybody can do that. But to take a pause and to feel the hurt or to feel the stress of the relationship, the friction, and to turn that around and to focus ourselves and to ask ourselves whether it's like, how am I doing that in some version, or how can I show up in this conversation in a different way that's gonna pop us out of this he said, she said, I said, you said, I said, you said, that argument that becomes a battle of the egos and a battle for being right and never ends well, ever. If we can introduce that element of choice and approach it with a sense of humility rather than being right, and looking for the opportunities to grow and approach it with curiosity. It's like, huh, I wonder why, their comment really triggered me. I'm feeling really upset right now. I wonder why would that be? Right? Because if somebody else, maybe they said the same thing to somebody else and nothing happened. Right? So why is it that that phrase or that statement or that behavior really bugs me? Um, and if we do, or if we're willing to do the work, which is heroic because it does take work to figure those things out. Um, but if we're willing to do the work, then we can really speed up our process of healing and transformation.
Mm. And I think this is valid across all kind of, human interactions, whether socially or, you know, in the context of social media or in the context of family or friends or workplace as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easy to blame others for our failures or the collective failures, but then if you are blaming, then you also should look into yourself as well.
Always, always. Yeah, we're focusing on romantic, intimate relationships. But what we're talking about applies to any relationship.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Kristen, you have been a transformational coach as well for 3 decades. So um, I think it may be the same thing. What's the toughest mindset shift you have seen people in, even when they are internally genuinely committed to grow?
Yeah, I have a clear answer for that. The hardest thing that I've seen people struggle with is popping out of the victim consciousness. The poor me, woe is me.
I guess.
If only, mom hadn't done this or daddy hadn't left or the teacher or the minister of society or sexism or misogyny or racism or homophobia, if only the system was different, then I would be happy. Um, because the thing is, and not to deny that any of those things exist, and it's not to deny that human beings do horrible things to each other that have effects. It's not to deny any of that. It's just to say that if we want to be free, as long as we're holding anyone or anything over the fire for what they did or failed to do, our hand is also in the fire. Our hand is also getting burnt. So rather than giving our power away, because in many cases we're as long as if we're using that frame of mind, if only we're giving our power away and often to the perpetrator, often to the cause of the problem.
Well,
Right. So the way to get through that is to say, right, that sucked and I wish it had never happened. And or that sucks and I wish the system were set up more fairly. And what am I going to do about it? How am I going to show up in response to that? And that alone is completely empowering and pops us out of that victim consciousness.
exactly. I may not have the power to change the system completely, but then let's start with me only. Why?
Exactly. Exactly. Change what we can.
That is very practical. So before we wrap up, Kristen, so your book, Conscious Love, it's coming in June. So if our listeners would like to get a hold of it, and your another book, which is Awakening the Soul of Power, how they can do that and how they can connect with you as well.
Yeah, the book will be on Amazon. Awakening the Soul Power is already there. Um, Conscious Love will be up there in within a couple of weeks, definitely by June. And in terms of reaching me, probably the best way is my website, which is Soulful Power, SOULFULPOWER, how soulfulpower.com. And from there, they can access my other email, my other social media, or send me an email or whatever they want to do.
Great. I'll have all the links mentioned in the show notes in there. And Kristen, thank you so much. I mean, this was really, really a thought-provoking, bold, bit of a nuanced yet, such a practical, pragmatic take on
Mm.
relationships. I think holistically, if we see on the human connection that we have. So I'm
Beautiful, son. I really appreciate your words and your acknowledgement. And thank you for having me. Thank you for doing the podcast. I know in your willingness to do that, a lot of different lives are being touched. So thank you.
thank you so much for your kind words, Kristen. And it's all possible because of our listeners and incredible guests and thought-provoking conversations like this. So thank you once again. And to everyone listening, I encourage all of you to check out Christian's latest book coming in June, Conscious Love. I'll have all the links in their show notes. Just go there and get a hold of his book and also connect with him and explore how these ideas might shift the way you approach love, power, and connection in your life, in your own life. Explore, and then you can share your thoughts and opinions with us. And also, thank you to all of you for tuning into the Mindful Living podcast. This is your host, Sana, signing off. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Thank you.